they said? GDP is up, yes. FDI is up, yes. They said we're still struggling with interest rates, yes. But let's unpack it. FDI, start with that. Foreign direct investment. When you unwrap that, you find that 70% of that FDI growth is in the petroleum and petroleum product sector. And it's funded by companies like Chevron, who are already here and still putting more into their investments, like ExxonMobil, like Total. All of these oil companies are the main reasons. So no major new FDIs are coming in. Now, we tend to think the petroleum industry is just, the huge, fantastic sector in this country. It isn't. It represents 14% of our GDP. So what we produce as a people, 14% of that comes from petroleum. 45% of that comes from agriculture. 30% from the service sector, which would include the government itself and everybody else that's in service. And then manufacturing gets a dismal 11%. So 45% of our people are in agriculture, and yet there's no FDI flowing into that sector. You know why? It's a long-term investment. Nobody wants to tie down a lot of money in an economy that is unstable for a long period of time. And so a lot of these numbers are correct, but it looks like somebody did the exams for this government. It wasn't as a result of the direct policies that they put in place. Nigeria was just going along, minding its own business, and the government is reaping the results of it. The other set of people that's working for this economy are the people. You and I, waking up every day, doing what we believe we ought to do, to make a living. And why do I say these are the other people taking the exams for the government or writing the papers for the government? GDP per capita is, when you take all of our production in this country and you divide it by the number of people, I'm oversimplifying this,
okay,
so that the lay person can understand it.
Which is better.
So when you divide it by the number of people in this country, you get GDP per capita. So our per capita in dollars is $2,800. That is the formal sector. Then there is the informal sector, which is, would add about another $1,000 to it. What's the informal sector? It's you and I get a ride from you in the morning going to work. I don't have to pay for that. But it's still, there's an opportunity cost of the money that I'm not spending. It's part of that is still, it keeps money in my pocket so I could spend it someplace else. It's my niece, instead of going to an after school where she pays, comes to my place where she doesn't have to pay. So a lot of the other countries, these things are recorded in the formal sector, but it's not because it's in our informal sector. So if you add that to the formal sector, you're looking at about, $3,800, $3,900, roughly $4,000. Multiply that by 158 exchange, dollar to naira, you're looking at about 635,000 per person, naira. So if we divided everything, our productivity, by each person, every child, woman, boy, and girl gets 6,350 something naira. Multiply that by 160 million people. You're looking at 100 and something trillion naira. What's the value of our budget every year? About 4 trillion. So what it means is our government has control of 4 trillion, and the rest of it is with us, the people.
In fact, almost 5 trillion.
Yeah, yes, sir. So you take that from 101 trillion value. So they're putting a little I mean, we're putting a little of that in their pockets to spend for our benefit, to put in roads, to put in schools, to put in, and the generality of the people are not feeling the impact in their pocketbooks. It's, because I looked at this and I was, okay, these numbers are great, but we don't feel it at home. We don't feel it in our bank accounts. Why not? That is because the growth that we have in the economy is being generated by us. Through, we're struggling. Imagine, it's like making brick without straw. The proverbial brick without straw. But imagine if we had straw, and instead of, producing with our own saliva, the government gives us water, how much more we could accomplish. So it's not about a marking scheme. It's about where are the gains coming from? Who's responsible for the gains? I mean, definitely the people are not feeling it in their homes, and so it means the money is not filtering down to the people because they're the ones are doing this work. Now, a young guy from northern Nigeria, 33-year-old guy, he's into smoked meats. I want to say it's kilichi or something like that. Yeah. And his comment was, I hear they're building skyscrapers in Lagos. Good for them. All I want my government to do for me is give me power and for the bank to loan me a small amount of money so that I can expand this. I'm a potential employer of labor, and nobody's trying to help me.
And that's one challenge, access to credit.
Yes, sir. No power, access to credit, and even when you get the credit, the interest rates are so high, it runs your business into the ground. Transportation, even when you produce these things, have you noticed on our roads how many of these huge trucks, just tip over? And every time I see that, I'm thinking, that is somebody's merchandise right there that is not going to get to market because our roads are bad, because there's no rail. We are the only large group of people that I know that all we do is pile ourselves into cars and drive around. No subway, no surface trains. All of these things that could help this economy be more productive. And yet, we have the boldness to say we've spent 180 billion of the Shore P money on helping women deliver. At the risk of sounding mean, I think that money should be spent in educating people about not having children they cannot afford to feed. Because you find artisans, drivers, mechanics with 2 wives, 5 or 6 children. They need to stop. So why are we not educating them so that the quality of life of our people can be improved? And spending that much money in an area where it's so nebulous, we can't measure it. I mean, who's going to go out there and start counting, how many pregnant women we helped to deliver? And, what kind of risk were they in? All of these things are work yet to be done. We have, we promised 6,000 kilowatts of power. And we're rejoicing over 700 that we added to it. We're at 4,000 now? Maybe 4,005.
In fact, at the end of this year, from that power sector roadmap which was launched, it is said that we're supposed to get 14,000 megawatts by the end of this year. So, who knows? But we'll be watching and see if that is eventually done.
It's going to take a miracle, if you ask me, if this is June, 6 months to the end of the year. And we haven't started seeing, the impact in our homes today. I would love for that to happen.
Perhaps, Prof, let's look at how we define progress. Maybe that can actually help us. And the President actually made it a little easier for us to do this assessment. He said we should look at his own administration 2 years in comparison with others that have come before him. And before now, we haven't actually gotten close to 4,000. So perhaps that's what we mean when we talk about some kind of development, growth, in comparison to what obtained before he came on the saddle.
Now, what obtained before he came in the saddle? It wasn't a